thank you for this time. I thank you that generational things will be broken and the relationships will become closer. Father, I know I wrote words on the paper, but make them come to life, that they would come to life in everyone's family and everyone's marriage and everyone's relationship and everyone's engagement. Bless their children, bless their mother relationship, their father relationship, their sibling relationship. Father, let them be willing to be changed. Amen. All right, let's jump into it. Let's jump right into it. We have been talking about relationships, and one of the things that I have attempted to establish over the last few weeks is that we have been in an illusion. We have been in an illusion that we have called reality, and our reality has kicked us in our tails because our reality of love is really not what love is at all. And this, what we're talking about, God chemistry, is that I couldn't understand how that as much as I love my wife and I would die for her, that I could not die to myself so that I could be quiet long enough for her to share with me how she felt. Many of us say we have relationships and we say we will die for someone, but at the same time we don't die, we live. And so over these last few weeks we've been talking about getting chemistry. And I was just trying to figure out, how do I get my chemistry back with my wife, with my friend, with my lover? And I had to go through a series of things, and in my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd teach on relationships again. And one of the things I asked myself, how do I teach on relationships, and I myself am having a problem with my own relationship? Well, one of the things that I have come to the conclusion over the years, it was my ego. And when I say to the conclusion over the last 4 years, 3 to 4 years, it was that my ego was totally unchecked. And, you know, we think we need our ego for certain things, but as much as I thought I needed it, it needed to go. So I had never thought also that, and I learned about myself, is that if I had an impulse to hug her, if I had an impulse to say I love her, if I had an impulse to be compassionate, I couldn't do it. And I said, why can't I just act upon how I feel? Even to this day, there are sometimes, you know, I think maybe a day yesterday or so, I wanted to do something, I just didn't do it. And I said, why didn't you do that, man? And so what we have discovered is that due to our own programming, when we grow up in our own programming, our programming has caused us to dislike something that is a regular part of who we are, and that is our impulses. And that those things were squashed. And when your impulses get squashed, then what happens that what should come natural to you, or what things that should come natural to you, are actually dangerous to you. And so for many of you, the impulse to share how you feel, the impulse to ask, the impulse to ask someone a question, that becomes dangerous to you because it was made dangerous as you grew up. And so there are many men where women hook up with him and say, why don't you talk? Well, he doesn't talk because that impulse was squashed by his mother or his dominant grandmother. In her wanting to establish her own dominance, or just peace and quiet, or her inability to understand how to raise a male child, the best thing she could do was shut him down and become boisterous. We know now that, and I know now after 21 years of working with people, that tactic does not work, and at some point in puberty, they rebel. And then it becomes, there is no relationship between the mother and this adolescent child. And as he becomes a teen, I had a brother call me and say, she's going to have to get to the point where she realizes, she's going to realize she can't stop me anymore. And at this point, his mother's paying all of his bills and everything, but he goes into rebellion. Then when he falls in love with you, and he really loves you at this point, he doesn't know that this is in his unconscious mind. And it is his unconscious mind that ruins his relationship. And so tonight I want to once again talk about ego, and hopefully you will get this. I think this will have a good time. And tonight I'm just going to talk about your ego, Because if you cannot put this in check, then you cannot have love, not the way that you want to have it. And so you desire to have a relationship, you desire to be in a relationship, but at the same time it becomes almost virtually impossible because you get in your own way. Having said that, Father, bless this time. I already did that though, right? Amen. All righty. There are several phases to transformation I have come to understand. Several phases to transformation. And phase one is the undoing. You're going to hear me say that a lot. And when I say undoing, what I mean is you have to undo what was already did to you before you can do the love that you want to do. And unless you accept that I am raggedy and my stuff is not working properly, you will not do what you can to undo the things that were done to you or who you became. Now, the undoing means to actually dismantling and taking apart that thought process that you live by. Excuse me, that relationship codes that you live by. In order to love my wife, and you would think that after we've been married 21 years, together 22, married 21 years, but you would think that after being married for at least 15, 16 years, we would have had some stuff undone. But I have since learned that the ego's whole job is to remain intact and never be dismantled. So this is why you can be in church most of your life and still not have good relationships. And you can't have them because you have never subdued your ego. So now, if you're going to be transformed, that first phase is an undoing, and that is the undoing comes, you just don't make it happen. It comes at a point of disillusionment or disappointment, letdown, discouragement. When you get discouraged or when you get let down, you have to observe what is going on, because what is really happening is the undoing is beginning to take place when you're in a relationship or just in your life, period. The undoing takes place at the peak of when you are full of yourself. When we are full of ourselves and we are full of our ego, no one can tell us what to do. That's when everything is clicking. And that's oftentimes when this disillusionment takes place, this disappointment or this letdown or this felt letdown. When you are full of yourself, that means you are completely identified with your ego. When you are full of yourself, and some say ego is easing God out, but we're talking about the ego, the person you think that you are, that you act, you believe that you are. But it's not the I that you are, it's who you've become, and your ego lives off of what we have learned with the letter A, and that is attachments. And so when your ego gets hit, your attachments gets hit. The pride of your heart has deceived you, you that dwell in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. That said in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though you exalt yourself as an eagle, although you set your nest among the stars, there I will bring you down, said the Lord. And this is in Obadiah chapter 1. He says, you can soar as high as an eagle, but God says, and from there is when I will bring you down. So it's very fitting. He says high as an eagle or high as your ego. You can soar very high, but there's always something that's going to bring you down to earth. Your security becomes your ruin. Your security becomes your ruin when your security is in your attachments. And I submit to you that the reason that you don't have a loving relationship is not that there's no one to love you, but you are in love with your attachments. And so we go around trying to find people who will fit our list of attachments, or people who will not affect what we're attached to, so that we can experience the love that we think we want to experience. Now, when you identify with your ego, what you're really saying, this is who I am. And I remember many arguments and many discussions while my wife was talking or when we were talking, and she's trying to share how she feels, and I'm digging in with my ego because I'm saying, I'm going to listen to what you're saying, but I'm not going to change fully. Because this is who I am. You're trying to change me. This is why many women often say, you're trying to control me, when the man is really just sharing how he feels or saying something. And you're saying you're trying to control me, but no, he's not trying to. I don't know about your man, but he's not trying to control you. Sometimes he's messing with your attachments. And those attachments make you so upset when somebody disturbs them because you are your ego. And so when you say, this is who I am, and you stand on that, and you stand and you knew this when you met me, or hey, and you don't back down. I found out that my ego causes me not to back down, not to soften. Even when truth is presented to me and it's clear, my ego jumps in and says, no, you can't feel pain, because the ego is saying, once again, this truth is about to move out your attachment. So now, when you say this is who I am, this is going to bring a crisis into your life. And sometimes crises have to come into your life. And the only way you will change is that loss has to take place. When you are so filled within your ego and you have gotten to the point where you know that you know who you are and they're wrong, and until they change this, until that happens, and that's really just black, and that's really just what we picked up. Loss is going to be the very thing that's going to let you know that you're over-identifying with something. I use the word over-identifying because you can over-identify yourself with your status in your career. You can over-identify yourself with your family or your possessions. You can over-identify yourself with your relationship. Now, when I keep saying over-identify, you are your relationship. You are your career. You are your status. I never forget, there was a sister who could not find a job a couple of years back, and she says, but I know how much I'm worth. And as soon as she said that, I realized her ego is totally out of rye, totally out of whack, and she's not keeping up with the times. And she knows, I graduated from college, I did this, I know what my worth is, and I'm just not going to take anything less. Well, she remained unemployed for 2 years, struggling, doing whatever she had to do, because she over-identified with who she had become, and now the loss of her job meant that she was no longer felt good about herself, and then therefore to go ahead and work at a seemingly lower position because her ego judged anybody else that worked at that position she now works at. You can become over-identified with your possessions or your body image. You can become over-identified with the romance that's going on. Or sometimes loss has to come into your life in the form of a health crisis or a personal tragedy. For me, my being brought down to earth, and I'm so thankful that he was able to humble me, my being brought down to earth is that I was so over-identified with Duron Cloud, the pastor of the Soul Factory. He says, now let me go ahead and allow you experience loss within your ego, within your soul, so that you can see you are not who you think you are. So now the phase 2 of the transformation is called a type of a wake-up call. So when you go through this you go through the undoing, but then you go through these 2 phases of transformation, which is a type of wake-up call. And what is the wake-up call? It insists that you change or die. See, but most of us don't understand that we got with somebody else so that they could awaken us to who we are not. And when they awaken us to who we're not, that means that the Spirit is now demanding that change take place in your life, but your ego resists that because it is your ego that has gotten you this far. Your ego got you the job. Your ego got you here. Your ego got you this far. And now for me to, and you see, we think giving in means that we're backing down. And then we have to ask ourselves, what's wrong with backing down? Is backing down wrong, or is backing down wrong in our own communities? So now, the wake-up call insists that you change or die, and the wake-up call has one purpose, and that is to get your attention. It has one purpose, and that is to get your attention in a loud whisper that says, question your values, and I am here to awaken you to the true purpose for your life. So when we get a wake-up call, and I don't know what your wake-up call was, I don't know what got hit in your life, I don't know what area got hit, but if you look at it as a wake-up call, it's like I remember the movie Spike Lee at the end, he told Lawrence Fishburne, or I think he says, wake up. And the reason he's saying wake up, because Spike Lee's talking about the school days, D-A-Z-E. He realized that all these different communities and all these different children were, the children or college students were in a daze, and they were doing some of the most horrific things, all to be seen. And people were getting hurt, people were getting messed up, feelings were being hurt. And at the end of the movie, he says, wake up. But he was really sending a message to all African Americans. And that was, we are on a frequency, and that frequency has us in a spiritual daze that causes us not to live life. And so God has to now initiate a process of waking you up to the reality that you have not been living, although you've been alive. When I say that, I think about the aneurysm I had about 5 years ago. When I had that aneurysm, it made me stop. It made me realize, Duran, you're not in running anything. And unfortunately, you have to have 1, 2, 3, 4 wake-up calls before you wake up, if God favors you long enough to allow you to get several wake-up calls. And I realized after having this aneurysm that I was not who I thought I was, and I was a mortal being. And to this day, I live with the prospect every day that I could die at any moment. At any moment, it could happen. At any moment, something can go wrong. At any moment, something can rupture. And so I have to live with that daily. I check my blood pressure 8 times, 9, 10, 15 times a day, just to make sure, because my doctor told me 0 wiggle room. How much wiggle room? 0 wiggle room. So I got to stay on it all day long. Before, I was just going on with life, but now I have to be on my blood pressure, and I have to not eat certain things. I have to check the salt content. I can, first thing in the morning before I go to the bathroom, I'm checking my blood pressure. I sit down, I'm making sure all day long that my blood pressure is where it needs to be. Why? Because I got a wake-up call. And that wake-up call said, change or die. So now, when the wake-up call, its purpose also is to take you from the unconscious to the conscious. It's supposed to wake you up and take you from the unconscious to the conscious. It's supposed to be that way when you're on the phone, in the car, driving, talking, doing 3 different things, and all of a sudden you almost run into the back of somebody or something happens, and immediately you become conscious and you throw that phone down on the chair and say, oh my goodness, what was I doing? Well, what just happened is you were brought into the conscious reality you could have lost your life or hurt someone. And so when you come into the conscious realm, it is now time for you to put to death what you have mastered. See, now, the pain, we want a relationship, but we don't want the pain that comes with a relationship. I had a dream the night after the night of Lita's graduation. She graduated, and then that night I had a dream, and I was going into a corridor, a square corridor. It was a hallway. Several of you were in the dream, and each time I went to that hallway and people were staying in different places, I saw this person I haven't seen him in years. It's been 15 years now. And I saw him, and right when he was getting to walk up to me, he darted away. And I said, go ahead and duck it out, man. Go ahead and duck it out. And I realized I probably shouldn't have said that to him, but I said it anyway. He turned around and he spoke. And I said, I know I've done more in your life for you to at least be able to say thank you. And right then and there, I don't know if I woke up or it was in the dream, but God showed me, he said, people spend most of their life running away from pain and truth, yet they say they want out. And the moment that truth is brought to them to help them deliver from their pain, they will fight you to stay where they are. And that was my message to me, to say, you can't bring anybody out unless they want to. And the real deal is, if you're working on bringing somebody out, that means you're in. Because when you come to the reality that it is just really you, one spirit, and that there are people who cooperate with the spirit, and if they're on, I am a firm believer now, you can only help someone who wants to be helped. So now, when I say you have to master, you have to put to death what has mastered you. I take this from, he says, so kill, deaden, deprive of power the evil desire lurking in your members, those animal impulses and all that is earthly in you that is employed in sin. Sexual vice, impurity, sensual appetites, unholy desires, greed, covetousness, and idolatry, defying of the self and others' created things. Now, I want to go past that, but there are many of you all have been thinking about you for doing this thing and saying you want a real relationship without having a real relationship with the Spirit, which is God, which is the truth. So you can't have a real relationship if you're not going to have a real relationship with the one who created you for a relationship. So now he says, they promised them liberty, then that was Colossians 3:5. This is now 2 Peter 2:19. He says, they promised them liberty when they themselves are slaves to depravity and defilement. By whatever anyone is made inferior or worse is overcome. To that thing or person he is enslaved. Another version says a man is a slave to whatever has him mastered. Well, I'm watching that I've done this long enough to watch many people end up having to give up that treadmill run. And that is, we have become mastered on, I want to be married, I want to be with someone, but we have not mastered the kindness. We have not mastered seeking God fully. And you'll understand that by and by as we talk tonight. So I wrote this, you must put to death what has mastered you, and you now master. It mastered you, then you master it. And if you don't put to death that thing, your relationship is not going to work. Listen, them changing is not going to make you happy. You changing is going to make you happy. I know because my wife was able to live with me with me being unhappy and her becoming happy and leaving me in my state, which rebuked me. It rebuked me because she decided that she would no longer be mastered by black. And I watched her do it. It made me feel bad because she decided I'm no longer giving in to what we have been doing. Because what we have been doing is not good for her. It's not good for my daughter. And she said, I can't take myself through this. So she chose not to take herself through it. And I was left to myself. Because now here I was now wanting to get it on, wanting to keep something going. And she's refused to do it. But she also did it in the spirit. She didn't do it in black. You keep hearing me mentioning black. She didn't do it in that spirit that many women, I'm sure white women and Asian women do it, but I'm only familiar with black women, that literally keep that anxious, that anxiety, that agita, as my mother would say, keep something going, that constant bickering and the nastiness and the snapping and all that, and the rolling of the eyes and the ignoring and the doing the little slick stuff to be able to get you to line up, all that kind of stuff, not coming home at a certain point. She didn't do that. She said, I'm not going to let you take me to hell, Deron. That was her exact words. I'm not going to let you take me to hell. And she said, this ain't your fault. This is my fault for going there with you. So what do I do with that? I had to step off and step up. So now, disappointment, loss, and crisis, as bad as they feel, are the only ways sometimes the Spirit has to dehypnotize you. I have come to the conclusion that We are so encamped, and so, not better yet, so entrenched in who you are, you become so entrenched in your ego that it takes some sudden crisis, some loss in your relationship, in your life, to now dehypnotize you from what has had you hypnotized. See, I don't care what you say. There's some of you, against better judgment or wisdom or whatever, I'm going to go out with her. I'm going to go out with him because I'm tired of being by myself. And you know that this person is really not good for you, but at the same time, you are so hypnotized into believing that this man, who is not committed to anyone and has not committed to anything, can be committed to you long enough to bring you a spell of happiness. And you yourself have not committed along it. See, if you want to be a champion in your relationship, you have to be a champion in your relationship. You have to decide, I am going to be a champion regardless of my circumstances. Before I leave this earth, I will have championed the cause of killing the very generational curse that took my father's brothers, my father's father, and everybody else out. I'm the one in my family line that my ancestors from slavery will look and say, that was who we are. So what does that mean? That means that I will never be helpless. Helpless is not in my repertoire. I have to champion the cause of relationship. So when the spirit has left you or has dehypnotized you, the goal is to motivate you to meaningful action. When you get hit with loss, the goal of your relationship being hit. Now, let me make sure you understand. Sometimes you're having turmoil in your relationship because the Spirit of God is trying to dehypnotize you from what you've been following. That's why some of you are just saying, after all these years, I'm just learning to love myself. Well, what have you been doing all of these years then? You've been hypnotized. And you've been in the same days that everybody else is in, chasing love, chasing a TV romance, chasing all of this stuff. And then you realize, wait a minute, I don't even love me. I don't know what love is. When that happens, that is the wake-up call to wake up to yourself to say, wait a minute, I don't know how much longer I live. One of my wife's best friend and my great friend died at 50 years old, Annette Turner. But she salvaged the last 10 years of her life by going against what most black women never do, and that was she chose to make her body healthy, buying her extra years. But that thing came into her life so that she could live her life. Because prior to that, she wasn't living. She was just existing. Now, many of us think, I'm going to get past that. Listen, that's not true. You don't know that. So now, when you get dehypnotized, when I say meaningful action and change, I'm not talking about a 2-week turnaround, but you realize when your ego gets hit, I need to switch up. Now, it's in this first phase that we're not aware how loyal we have been to our egos. See, our ego becomes our friend and we remain loyal to it. But it has become so, for me, at this point, it becomes so apparent that we've relied on our ego self for all of our answers. See, once I realized in several areas, I didn't hit the wall in my relationship, hit the wall in my finances, hit the wall with my mouth, hit the wall with my mind. And I'm saying, how did I get into this rut, R-U-T? Because I realized that I, through my ego, rely on me for my own answers. Although I say that I am in Christ, I am in the Spirit of God, I am running things creatively, making it look spiritual. Are y'all keeping up with me? We've been unspiritual in a relationship that can only be completed in the spiritual realm. See, until you understand that all relationship is spiritual, we are one. If you and I rode together for any amount of time, we would find out that we are one. Although we have separate experiences, God would knit us together because we are one spirit. You two, if you are together, you are one. But when you come to the point where you forget that you are one with all, it is your ego that makes you feel that you are separated from all. And you cannot have a spiritual, unspiritual relationship. There must be an acknowledgement of the four minds. There must be an acknowledgement of the four minds. I had to acknowledge my two minds and Jill's two minds and acknowledge the four minds that was in this relationship. My problem and your problem is your dependency on the second mind and your flesh. Four minds. Conscious, which is the creative mind, the unconscious mind. The conscious, which is the creative mind, the conscious mind, and the unconscious mind. Two minds within me. Jill, conscious, creative, unconscious mind. Together we are four. First Corinthians 15:44, it says, it is sown a natural physical body. It is raised a supernatural spiritual body. As surely as there is a physical body, there is also a spiritual body. Thus it is written, the first man, Adam, became the living being, an individual personality. The last Adam, Christ, became a life-giving spirit, restoring the dead to life. But it is not the spiritual life which came first, but the physical and then the spiritual. This is where I get the saying where I always say in the scriptures, it says the natural precedes the spiritual. And so it says, the first man was out of the earth, made of dust, earthly minded. The second man is of the Lord, from out of heaven. Now, those who are made of dust are like the man who was the first man, made out of dust, earthly minded. And as it is, the man from heaven, so also are those who are heavenly minded. You have to, I don't know about you, but I have to do everything I can to remain conscious in all of my relationships. Because the moment you slip into your unconscious, we learned last week, is that you slip into your default mind. So if you're going to be a champion in your relationship, you have to remember, if I'm driving a car, I'm driving a car. I'm driving a car. I'm driving a car. I'm in a vehicle. I am responsible for my life and the people around me. I am conscious where I am going. I'm driving a car. I'm driving a car. Or this is a human being I'm in love with. This is a human being I am in love with. This is a human being. I may not stand what they're doing, but I am conscious that this is a human being, and I am not going to become unconscious and treat them like I have treated other people in my unconscious mind. And the moment you forget that you are dealing with human beings and you start dealing with them in an autopilot mindset, you start hurting them, ultimately hurting yourself. When we get together, two bodies come together, two spirits, four minds. I just explained those two minds. It is our subconscious, unconscious mind that wreaks havoc on my relationships. I learned this cleaning up my garage. My wife and I were having a great conversation. The kitchen door was open. She's talking to me. I'm talking to her. I'm stacking stuff. I'm doing stuff. And she happens to look out, see me doing it, and say, well, Deron, you want to make sure you don't. I said, hey, man, I got it. I got this. She just ducked back into the kitchen. Said, why did I say that? We were having a great conversation. I snapped at her. Why do I snap? Because I was conscious with what I was doing at that point, and my unconscious mind said, don't be telling me what to do. I can't stand to be told what to do by a woman. Are y'all listening to me? Atlanta, are y'all hearing me? So my unconscious mind responded. My subconscious, that thing was there, and then we try to do that, fix it up, but it's too late now. Once we begin to act out in our unconscious or our subconscious mind, the deal is to acknowledge, I didn't mean that. Forgive me. Forgive me. It sounded nasty, but I didn't mean that. And I understand if you can't get past it right now. But no, I didn't mean that. I really didn't mean that. Or it's the call back. I just snapped at you. Forgive me. I got off the phone really fast. I snapped at you. I should not have done that. If they don't answer the phone, leave a message. You have every right not to answer the phone. I responded in the wrong way. That's the champion in their relationship. The person who never makes it to the playoffs, never makes it into the championship, it says, I'll make it up later when I see him. Impossible. Vibes are real, as my wife says. The moment our conscious mind stops paying attention, we lose control. Happy relationships are created. They're not born. Happy relationships are created. They're not born. Happiness in my relationship had to be created by us. It's not born. If you want a happy relationship, you have to know you have the power to create it. The same way you have the power to pick white with an oranges type blouse, and to get your hair done in that way and to put it, you were conscious and creative in creating that style. You have to be just that conscious in your relationship. You have to make a decision. I am going to create a good relationship. I am going to create a romantic relationship. I am going to create a great mother and daughter relationship. I am going to create a father and son relationship. I am going to create a relationship with my sister. I am going to create it, and then you set out to create it. It just doesn't come about. When you stop creating and you go into your unconscious mind, you are now going into the pre-programmed things that were downloaded into you by your caretakers. This is why we say, how in the world I'm sounding just like my father, acting just like my mother. I can't believe I just acted like that, and you can't even get out of it. You want to throw this thing into reverse and you can't do it. Why? Because you were programmed all of your life to follow how they loved. And unless you actively get involved in your own relationship, and you can do this at any age, it's just a choice. See, but I sense that some of you are so ego-focused, but you don't understand who I live with. I don't give a darn who you live with. You can create the relationship you want. Even that means creating and not being there. You better hear that. You better hear that. Sometimes some people stay in something so long and they ain't created nothing. We just existing. I think I'll leave that alone for a second. Ain't one man in the world is going to resist you trying to create a good relationship with him. It ain't one man in the world that's going to resist you trying to create a good relationship with him if you're sincere, if you're meaningful, because we live to be loved. And we may act like a butthole at first. I want to talk to you. We want to be chased too. We want to be pursued. I need to know my wife knows she's screwed up. Don't make it up in the bed. That's okay. But I need to know in our day-to-day life you understand that you have an attitude. That you miss it. Don't just call, so how you doing? Pursue me. Pursue me. Let me know you're different from every other black woman that I've ever met. You can apologize. Let me know that. Step off your ego long enough to let me know that even though I do get 8 out of 10 things wrong with you, you get at least 1 thing out of 10 wrong. But your choosing not to acknowledge that lets me know you ain't being real. So why should I put my all in? Without our own empowering behaviors, which means our parents programmed us often with disempowering behaviors, so therefore we don't have an original empowering behavior in our body. Which means you have to create the empowering behaviors that you want. I could not get my wife to share with me until I consistently showed her how much I'm going to kill my ego. What does this mean to constantly kill your ego? I realized she was entrenched in black. And ain't nothing I was going to do to get her out of that black. And that snapdragon crap that she was doing with me. But I made a decision. I love you, and so therefore, I ain't got to win no argument. I don't even have to be fully understood most of the time until you see that I mean what I mean. I love you, and I'm into you. And if this is what I have to go through because of what I created in the beginning, then I'm going to do whatever I can to undo it. Which means it's going to be a season of hot and cold. But it's okay because I got to show you I'm into you. And then the more you share that you're into them by killing your ego, then they learn how to share with you. During the undoing season, confusion and chaos is going to intensify your fear. Confusion and chaos is going to intensify your fear. Listen, when you go to try to undo what you've learned over the years, you're getting ready to step into a world you don't know. That's called love. And once you step into that world love, your fears are going to be intensified. Chaos is going to be a part of this process. But you can't think of chaos as the process. You got to think of chaos as the opportunity. I have a friend here today. She taught me this. I just had fire words that just set people off. I know you find that hard to believe. I want to say the right thing, but I say something to get the party started. And I know because now they're responding to me in a certain way, And I'm saying, how are we here? And I start asking her, is there a better way I could have said that? Or what is your understanding of what I just shared with you? See, when you're trying to relate to someone, chaos is going to be a part of that process. And if you're not afraid of chaos and a little disorder to get to organized love, then you got to let chaos be a part of that process. And a part of that chaos is subduing your emotions and allowing them who you think less of, which is ego, to tell you how you're getting it wrong. Because I remember saying to her on a regular basis, however you're responding, that's not my intention. Did you hear me? Atlanta, are you hearing me? Lisa, you hearing me? However you're responding, is it cold in Atlanta? Because somebody wrapped up like an Eskimo. However you're responding. See, in other words, however you're responding to me, I know that's not what I want out of you because I want to work with you. So now, how am I responding? What am I saying to you that's making you feel the way you're feeling? See, you can't have an ego when you ask that question. Because now you got to brace yourself for the pain. But many of us don't want the pain. But the pain can only be dissipated by the truth. Please tell me, what am I doing to make you respond like this? Because this is not the response I want to get from you. And then you listen. And then you realize, wait a minute, I've been responding angrily. Or it's just habitual habit anger talk. I just made that habitual habit anger talk. We got that. You know, that's what black is. Habitual habit anger talk. That's my definition of black. Habitual habit anger talk. That's black. I hope y'all getting this because I'm feeling really good as I share this stuff. Listen. See that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Why be you not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. When chaos comes into your relationship, and that intensity causes your fear to rise, don't run from it. See it as a great opportunity. So I had to start changing that. I used to, when energy started, anxiety came. Because that's all I knew to choose. As soon as I felt flooded, as soon as I felt anything, anxiety came. And when anxiety came, then I'm up in the thing with them. I now tell myself, when that energy starts, we now have a great opportunity to come together. There's somewhere, but you got to believe that. There's somewhere that we can come together, and I need to seize this opportunity now because the days are evil. And if we allow this to continue in our relationship, it will push us further apart than bring us together. Until you see chaos as an opportunity, say chaos is an opportunity. Say it again. Say it again. That is so opposite of what we've learned. Chaos is really an opportunity to shut down, walk away, jet out, kirk out. But the day I chose to say, I surrender and chaos is my opportunity. Why? Because I love you. 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 So if we're not seeing eye to eye, how can we come together on this? We just need to learn how to love each other just a little bit more. Don't mean we need to agree. We just need to come together. Either you're going to dwell in the natural, and if you dwell in the natural, darkness is going to occur. Or you can seize the spirit and transcend it and be renewed by your thinking. Now, for years, I said my wife is not my enemy. I put it on my bathroom. I put it everywhere. Jill is not my enemy. She's not my enemy. My wife is not my enemy. My wife is not my enemy. I now understand this. When she's upset, and I hate it. I take it, but I don't hate it. So it just rubs me the wrong way when she gets mad or bothered. I say, all right, how can we come together on this? I don't be thinking, I'm going to 7-Eleven. I'm going to go play some ball. I'm going to get out of here. I got to go. I want to know, how can we come together on this? Well, I may not be able to come together with her right now, but how can we come together on this? That's when you got to remember the good times. You got to remember the good talks. This goes for your children too. How can I get them to want to talk to me? Not, you need to talk to me. How can I get you to want to talk to me without me forcing you to talk, which is no talk at all? I've learned, that's when I came with that song. We're going to do a concert pretty soon for Kids Eat Free. Me and the praise team, I guess they don't know this, but they're going to find out. All these songs I've been making up, y'all think I'm tripping. I'm going to have a big concert. Everybody in D.C. been talking about transcend it. Time to end it. But that came when I realized you can transcend wherever you are. It's painful, but you can rise above the problem, see the problem, and get the answer, and then be a part of the solution and not the problem. You can transcend it. But you have to choose to use your spirit to rise above where you are and observe the way you're loving. I appeal to you, to therefore, brethren, and beg you, in the view of all the mercies of God, to make a decisive dedication of your bodies, presenting all your members and faculties as a living sacrifice, wholly devoted, consecrated, and well-pleasing to God, which is your reasonable, rational, intelligent service and spiritual worship. So he says, I appeal to you, therefore, and beg you to dedicate your bodies and be a living sacrifice, holy. You can't be worldly and have a relationship. See, some of you will never have a good relationship because of what you look at on TV. If these reality shows, which are no reality at all, but a plant by government and other things to keep your spirit on edge, and if that's what entertains you, then you're going to entertain that spirit when you're talking. He says, holy. See, by the time you begin to understand what energy is, you'll realize I can't put that in my spirit because I'll find myself acting out like that. Do not be conformed to this world, this age, fashioned after adapted to its external superficial customs, but be transformed, changed by the entire renewal of your mind, by its new ideals and its new attitude, so that you may prove yourselves what is good and acceptable in the perfect will of God. You can prove, transcend it, even the thing which is good and acceptable, perfect in your sight. I didn't have a real relationship till I got real with me. Not until we feel threatened, annihilated, and vulnerable do we call on the source of our souls. It's not until you feel threatened or annihilated and whatever that you begin to call on the source of your soul. I've learned soul searching must end with me asking for help from a pure intent. If you're going to soul search, ask God for help. Ask the Spirit of God for help with pure intentions. My vulnerability becomes my strength. I set my ego aside and I request the truth sincerely, despite the consequences of my flesh. I'll say it again. My vulnerability becomes my strength. Say it. My vulnerability becomes my strength when I learn to set my ego aside and request truth sincerely, despite the consequences to my flesh. That means you're going to have to feel bad to have a great relationship. Because truth has got to come and consequences are going to have to be felt in order to have a good relationship. You can't have consequences without truth. That's why they call them truth and what? Consequences. You got to man your flesh up and tell your flesh, take it, man, take it. Take this criticism. Take what they're saying to you. Accept the truth and ask with sincerity. So you know you're ready for sincerity when you can go to them and say, tell me how I get on your nerves. And then be able to take what they say and not come up with some creative, well, don't get me started on you. That's when you want to find out where am I getting it wrong. And you can handle those consequences. If I take the first step to realizing who I am, my first attempt at love always involves a willingness. Acknowledge that I know nothing in terms of the truth. And I'm prepared to demolish any barrier that keeps me from it. Acknowledge I take full responsibility for my past and the reality that I created to survive. And the reality I create daily. Say this, I take responsibility for the reality I created to survive. I also take responsibility for the realities I create daily. There is no room for the champion within me to be helpless. There was no room for the champion in me to be helpless. Not as long as I got breath in my body. You have to be willing to acknowledge, commit to unlearning almost everything you thought was reality. That's why you feel confused. That's why y'all sitting here looking like, oh my God, when's this man going to stop? When is he going to just stop? I can't take another word that he's saying. He's beating me about the soul. I didn't come in here to find out they were right. I came in to get them in check. That's when you know you're on the right page, when you begin to say, uh-oh. He talking about me. That's when you got to commit to that you don't know nothing. When you get to the point that you don't know nothing, you really don't know nothing. Now the universe can use you. I don't know nothing. When I walk from here, I'll forget half the things I said to you tonight. I don't know nothing. That's why I tell my wife, don't tell me nothing. I don't want to know nobody's business. Let me give you this last one. Why the pain with what we know? Why the pain with all that you know? Why the pain? Here's the question. Why the pain with all the spiritual stuff you know? We've accumulated spiritual knowledge. However, our egos stay intact. You are in pain because you get more spiritual knowledge, but you don't do anything to dismantle your ego and its attachments. The ego is sneaky. When you become an information whore, a spiritual information whore, a revelation geek. You're going from one church, one speaker, one person to the next. Because I was there, one book, one thing, one internet, one Oprah Winfrey thing, one thing over here. I'm online, I'm getting emails, I'm listening to this pastor, I'm doing this. Because you think if I get one more piece of spiritual information, I'll unlock the door and I'll be free. That's a lie. The only thing that needs to be unlocked is your heart. There comes a time when you can't read another book. You don't need another spiritual revelation because that's ego within itself. It's a puffing up of knowledge. You get to learn more spiritual things, but it doesn't transcend to a heart change, and all you're really doing is revelationally masturbating. I can say that, my wife's not here, but I mean it. Which throws yourself into a serious self-deception. God bless you. Come on, let's give God a praise if that was worthy. Come on. If you're serious, go back and read your notes tomorrow. Go back and look at it again. I hit you with a lot of information, but you have to know that your spirit retained what you needed. If you hold on to that and you believe in Christ and you believe in the Spirit. See, some of you, I'm not talking about church, but I'm talking about the Spirit of truth. You can be transformed. I will not stop this until the oil stops flowing. And if you commit to come out, God will meet you here, because you have to understand we're peeling one layer off at a time every Wednesday. One more layer, one more layer, one more layer. Now, you do yourself a disservice, and even Atlanta, I talk to you, if you walk out saying, man, I ain't know none of this. How will they learn unless there's revelation? My people perish for a lack of knowledge. Where there is no revelation, the people perish. So right now, you are standing in revelation. You said, I ain't never heard it like this, because he revealed it to you this way and to me so that we can get it this way. So right now, don't you feel bad that, I ain't got this. You just got it. And when it comes time for it to be appropriated in your life, don't you run from it. What that means tonight or whenever it happens, if you decide I'm going to go ahead and be who I am, then you have just decided I'm not going to receive the revelation, because God is so awesome. He'll start just bringing it into your space. You're going to switch that? What you going to do with that? That's what Duran said, blah, blah, blah. See, don't run and tell nobody, because you can't explain to one person what I just said. I spoke everything for your spirit and your spirit only, and they would have to hear this CD. So don't run around thinking, I got to get all my notes, and I got 58,000 note cards, and what's going? No. Just let God give it to you when you need it. And be thankful. Be thankful, because what is my prayer for you? That these generational curses be broken off of you, then you break them off your children. But ultimately, that you live a guilt-free mindset. You ain't a bad person. It was just bad what was done to us. My challenge to you when I pray for you right now is that you don't run and know every note, but what you do is know that you are in revelation. Pure revelation. And with that revelation, if you're willing to commit to it, it says when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. There's no way you can keep all this going. But guess what? My God is so awesome. He knew what you needed tonight. Amen? He knew what you needed to hear tonight. Let me pray for your souls. Father, I thank you for this revelation. I thank you for the way that it's being come across. Now, Lord, help us to break these barriers that keep us away from truth. Help us not to run from truth and the pain, but to embrace it, to go after it, despite the consequences of our flesh. Father, I thank you for the eagerness, and I thank you for returning even this ministry back to a purpose of breaking yokes. Now, God, bless me. Let my mind be clear of all thoughts and all foolishness. Let Jill's mind be clear of all thoughts and all foolishness, that we can continue, and whoever else stands here. Now, Father, I ask that you appropriate in every person's life exactly what they needed, and you give them to them in abundance, God. Father, let them not find rest, if that is, until they get right with you. I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for revelation. I thank you for this house. Amen. God bless you.